Host Jeremy. With me here is Delaney, as usual. Glad to have you back on another Wednesday, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. And you can see from the title of the stream today, we're thankful. And one of the things that we're most thankful for is that we're not the mutants. We're not mutants, okay? We have the ability of independent thought, and we still retain some semblance of humanity. And we're going to use some of that humanity and independent thought to go over some news stories for you guys today. We got a very interesting lineup of topics here. We're going to be talking about how history is dead. We're watching history die in front of us. The ability to keep records. You know, you think back through history, certain civilizations, they chiseled things in mud, they scribbled it in stone, they put paintings on cave walls. Now, we have all but pretty much lost that ability to record events accurately at all. And we'll look at an example of that with the Waukesha attack in Wisconsin. We got a few stories about Kyle Rittenhouse, some interesting reactions we want to go over from the verdict, and what the people in the media were saying about it, the reactions to it, and we're going to look at a test that you can do at home with your friends and family this Thanksgiving to see if they're actually human beings or if they're NPCs. You'll want to stick around for that one. It's going to be great. We've got a couple stories about CRT education stuff that's going on. It's, by all indications, it seems that they really want to send minorities back to, the slums and the countries that they came from where they're uneducated. We'll talk about why, because we got some really jarring stories about the education system from California and elsewhere. And we got a couple miscellaneous stories after that, so I think we should just jump right into it. We got some stereos that already came in. It's popping off. Get a drink, grab a seat, get comfortable. Let's get into it.
Yep, let's go.
Intro seemed longer this time. I don't know why. But welcome back, everybody, to the Alt Centrist Podcast, the weekly narrative, whichever you want to call it. We go by several names now. Over on Stereo, we're known as the Clown World News. You know, we're testing out. We're A-B testing. And we're glad you're here. That's right. And we're trying to dive in some controversial topics, as we usually do, to pull in the stereo crowd, get some reactions here, hopefully get some criticisms, questions, things like that. We always do appreciate questions and criticisms and disagreement above all. Let's jump into our first story of the night and go to Waukesha. You guys obviously all heard what happened in Waukesha, right? Just a little car accident. Yes. Well, according to our record keeper's abilities, so in modern America 2021, we are apparently losing the ability to keep records. And we've seen this multiple times in the last year. We cover stories that seem to randomly change overnight. Facts are omitted. Even though we have the video evidence, Covington Kids, for example, you see 2-second clip. Oh, he walked up to the Indian's face and he started smiling. Nope, not even close to what happened. The ability to interpret and record the past is gone, folks. And with that, we've got a great update here for you. So this morning on the Wikipedia page for the Waukesha attack, as with a lot of current, relevant events, big happenings and things, a Wikipedia page gets created for that to kind of record the incident, right? So originally, this was the page for the Waukesha Christmas Parade, and it was called a Waukesha Christmas Parade car crash. And you can actually see that I was redirected from the previous page. They have since updated it because this has been in a live kind of debate over whether this should be changed. And the way that Wikipedia articles work is that there are many people that try to suggest changes to these articles. And you would think that with a massive consensus of people, you'd be able to come to something that resembles a factual instance. But somehow there was a consensus that was reached upon about the Waukesha attack that it was just a car crash. And they chose to record it that way up until maybe just an hour or two ago, I guess. I don't know. This changed since this morning. It was just a Waukesha Christmas parade car crash. And everywhere else, this isn't just Wikipedia. Everywhere else, it's either being downplayed or it's not even mentioned at all. Now, for those who aren't aware, if you haven't heard of the Waukesha attack or rampage or massacre, whatever you want to call it, there was 6 people that were killed at a Christmas parade when a black man drove his Ford Escape through the crowd. Okay, so that is what we're talking about here, and there's a good possibility you didn't hear of it because nobody wants to talk about it unless you're on the internet at all. I don't know. Where did you first hear and see about this, Delaney? See? Mm-hmm. 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 And we know why. We all know why, right? Because it was found out shortly after the attack took place. This guy is a supporter of Black Lives Matter. He's got some charged statements about, racially charged statements that he's made in the past. And there's a lot of potential indication where if it were any other race, aside from a black person, if it was a white guy or whatever, they would have used that available information to make an extreme stretch on his intent, right? His associations, what kind of groups he belongs to, what his beliefs are, things like that. I mean, if he had a picture from 10 years ago where he was just making the OK symbol, they would have said that he's an avowed white supremacist, Nazi, white nationalist, things like that. You know what I'm saying? So it's Mhm. And that's a given in this situation. This isn't us talking about the fact that look at the double standard in media. No, we already know that. That's boring. We're talking about, in general, zooming out one more level, just a civilization's ability to even record events as they happen. So we'll keep tabs on this Wikipedia article because it is an evolving thing. They could change this again in an hour back to Waukesha Christmas car crash or something like that. But the point is that there is a large percentage of the population that simply can't see reality anymore, whether they want to record history incorrectly or not, or whether they are actually interpreting reality differently. It's not relevant to the end result, and that is we don't have accurate records of what happened. And I think, from a civilizational perspective, that's generally a red flag. Delaney's muted.
But
okay, I think you're
what was
fixed. Chat says you're muted, but you should be good now.
Oh.
That was my fault.
Okay. Well, my bad. Blame Jeremy. Don't blame me. From what I watched of the video, if this was an accident, why did he keep driving and keep mowing people down? This was no accident. He meant to mow people down with his car. It was no damn accident.
Well, that's the thing. I haven't, up until now, haven't even talked about his intent or anything like that, right? And we don't really even... we can go into that realm if we need to, but this isn't the kind of channel where we're just going to be like, look at BLM watermelon pictures on his Instagram, which he did, and
no, yeah, he did.
We get it, yeah, we get it. Obviously, the dude hated white people. We don't. I mean, how much do we really need to converse about these types of things when they happen? As if it's a novel thing. It's not novel anymore. This is regular, standard operation for America in modern 2021. Okay, so there's no novelty here worthy of discussion to me. It's like, okay, another one of these anti-white attacks. Okay, that's in my mind anyway. That's kind of how I approach this as far as the intent goes. What's up, Mika Little Chicano? We got Holly, Mitch, Dari, PJ Fan in the chat. Ma, the King 21. Thank you guys for notifying me of the audio problem. And
yeah, blame Jeremy. That's like Holly says, blame the patriarchy for silencing a woman. Yeah, blame Jeremy.
Well, she only gets 74% for every minute of talking that I do on the stream. So we got to keep the ratio.
Yeah.
We got to enforce the ratio.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Oh goodness.
let's go to stereo here. We had a few pop in, and we've been neglecting them. Let's go, Paul. What's up, Paul?
I'm gonna be making tacos really loud just for Delaney.
Do it.
Hell yeah.
Disappointing to see the verdict from Aubrey because it's the obvious political bullshit. The cameraman getting charged with murder. I don't care how the law is constructed. That's the word for that is retarded. That's all it is. But in better news, Rittenhouse Distillery, whoever these people are, they condemn you purchasing their liquor to celebrate the Rittenhouse verdict.
What?
So of course that's exactly what I did. And in a follow-up response later tonight, I'll give you a taste test review of Rittenhouse 100 Proof Rye.
I was gonna say it's probably disgusting whiskey, anyways. You don't want it if they're not gonna want to take your money.
Well, I don't know. I'm willing to get an objective review on that. Let me know, Paul, how that goes, because I'm interested in getting a little bit of that too, just as a memoir, right? Let's go to Osis.
Just want to say hello and happy Thanksgiving to everyone before I start making my usual cynical dickhead remarks. And I hope everyone is well and enjoys their holiday tomorrow, except for Holly because she has hers on a different day because she is a weirdo.
Thank you for that, Osis. Appreciate that. We are thankful as well, and we're getting into what we're thankful for here in just a minute, because I think it is important to remember the Anglo-Saxon holiday tradition of massive genocide and killing of native people, but also being thankful. I'm not sure which part I enjoy more, but let's go back to the stereo here. Look at Paul.
So one of the streamers I watch is Redonkulous.com is our website. Terrence Pop, a longtime listener to that show, called in, and they are a Waukesha resident. Did you know it's one of, I don't think he said the only, but one of the sanctuary, Second Amendment sanctuary counties in the state. And in the residents' words, not mine, a working class white town. Like Vegas, this was not chosen at random. We know what it was. It was just blatant, anti-white racist violence. You can't say that in public narrative, but that's exactly what it is. We know what this guy was about.
Yep, it's not any more complex than it really seems. If anything, it's more simple. Let's see here. Okay, just taking a glance at chat. We got somebody named Peter Sneaky's future ex-wife. It's Let's see what she's got to say.
And another
it's Courtney.
thing that bothers me quite a bit about this is it's almost like we've gotten away from looking at people's pasts. We don't put that into consideration anymore. It's like, with George Floyd and the pregnant lady with the gun to her stomach, and here he ran over his wife with his car.
Right.
We have to take these things into account. They're not meaningless. You can't just say, oh, well, this was just a one-time thing. We have to look at the full picture of the person.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, they know that too, and that's exactly why across the country, Soros is putting in DAs in the biggest cities in America to reduce bail and allow these criminals to get back out as soon as possible, which is basically exactly what happened with this guy. I don't know the full situation, but I do know he got out on really low bail just previous to this incident, right? For $1,000 or something like that because of, I don't know what the charges were, but the point is he got out, and even the police came out and said, yeah, we shouldn't have done that. So, well, yeah, of course he shouldn't have in hindsight, but maybe let's take another glance at doing this across the country in cities like LA, San Francisco, everywhere else. It's going to be, yeah. Tim Pool gets mad if you mention Soros. Well, hey, it's not, I'm not a Soros guy. I don't ever mention Soros, except for right there, because I'm talking about judges that he is, or DAs that he's specifically funding, because we talked about a story on air multiple weeks back about how he is funding the election of these DAs. That's just a simple fact. No conspiracy theory needed to bring up Soros' name on that one. But yeah, thank you for that, Courtney. And it's strange because they will find anything in the past of their opponents to look at. But again, that kind of just gets into the hypocrisy argument. And that is just insanely boring to me, so I'm not going to get into that. let's go to the next story of the day.
Right.
Let's get into some of the Rittenhouse reactions here. As you guys know, Rittenhouse got off not guilty on all charges, walked free, and everybody is mad about it. Tucker Carlson did an interview with him. We got some opinions from Rittenhouse. You know, he says he supports BLM. He says he lost trust in the justice system. He says that he's going to be suing people like Joe Biden for slander, which is a great thing. And if any, the best thing that could possibly happen out of this is if some actual lawsuits go down and people lose money, like in the Sandman case, because we need some consequences. This is the only way we can actually enact any consequences for terrible behavior in society anymore. Is if there's a giant case like Sandman, and then somebody actually gets sued. CNN got sued for a couple $100 million or something like that, was it, by him, and he won.
Yeah.
I don't know what the final payout of that was, but he got some money from CNN.
Yeah, he got paid. He got paid out really nice. Let me just say that. And I mean, he definitely didn't deserve the blown up narrative about that whole incident. So I say he deserved that money.
Yeah, and this is the only opportunity that anybody has to impose any kind of corrective action on this stuff. So unless we all want to see, white guys getting slandered and called white supremacists on TV for just defending themselves, things like that, just absurd, stupid things that are complete distortions of reality. Unless you want to keep seeing that, we gotta get some revenge. Not revenge as in like, I'm so mad, I'm gonna get you. Revenge as in for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. All the energy and power that went into trying to kill this kid and put him in the jail, we need the equivalent now to bounce back and a counteractive force. And hopefully that results in some money.
How much money did all these media companies make from running the narrative that Kyle Rittenhouse was a white supremacist, killed a bunch of black people, all this stuff, and then, goes through trial, gets not guilty, and found that he didn't kill any black people. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm sorry, he needs a cut of that money.
No, that's what I mean. It
was used to slander him.
They have no idea what actually happened. They have no clue about the actual events, and this is why we're gonna get some reactions like these right here. So this is Aaron Rupar on Twitter. He tweeted, he was really mad that Rittenhouse took a picture with Trump because obviously, Trump and Rittenhouse in one picture. Jesus Christ, this picture alone induced several 100,000 panic attacks in mutants across the nation just by looking at this alone.
Yep.
And in the background, there's a picture of Kim Jong-un shaking hands with Trump at the DMZ in North Korea. Okay, which is like monumental achievement of diplomacy, right? One of the greatest things that we've seen in our lifetimes, being 29 and 30ish years old. That's amazing achievement. And Rupar's like, Trump having a photo of Kim Jong-un on his wall is so painfully on brand. Completely ignoring the historical relevance of what happened, and of course just going right to the fact that the tiny little picture in the back on this picture of him with Rittenhouse is what he chooses to focus on after his loss in the Rittenhouse trial. So I thought this was a good indication of kind of where the brain is going. They want to just completely deflect any possible way they can. Just to save his own brain is really why he's doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, and I'm looking at all the replies, and one guy said, I bet he asked Kyle for money. How did he ask Kyle for money when Kyle has no money for himself? Like, what? You guys are crazy.
The replies to these types of tweets are why I use Twitter. It's really just entertaining as hell to look at this kind of stuff. And I got to say, the last week on Twitter has been glorious. If you guys haven't been on Twitter, guys, it just use Twitter for 2 weeks a year after big events like this. Trust me, your tanks will be refilled to the brim. This one here just topped me off. So, I was overflowing after reading this one. Best Buy sent out a notice offering their employees counseling services after the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict. Ooh.
I can't help but laugh at that.
My tanks are overflowing. This message was sent to all Employee Resource Group members. The verdict in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial stirs many emotions, and it's another difficult moment for our nation. While these events can be challenging and deeply hurtful, I hope you will take a moment to reflect on the values that unite us as a company and as a nation. We can do better, and we will do better. As each of us as individuals, allies, and human beings press together for better outcomes. I know events like these can take a toll on our mental health and emotional well-being. Please know that the Best Buy is here to support you. Oh, man. This is fantastic. So the fact this is happening on company-wide scales, right, is not shocking to me because back in the 2016 election, I personally knew a couple people who had to take the day after the election off for mental health reasons, and that's when it really clicked for me. The level of mental illness and the weakness that these people have, I didn't fully comprehend it until that point. When somebody has to take a day off work, I don't take a day off work unless I'm bleeding out of my throat or, there's some other really terrible situation happening that I can't make it into work physically somehow for some reason. But these people will take it off because Kyle Rittenhouse verdict, and he came back not guilty. Astonishing.
Right.
That can't be good for civilization, I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, the way I see it from a business point of view, all the people that work for Best Buy are just going to all take the day off now. They're going to be like, you know what? I have emotional trauma from the Kyle Rittenhouse case. We need to just close the store down. There's nobody here to work it. There's nobody here to run it. So Best Buy's going to lose money doing this, I guess, maybe, but we'll see.
It's rough. I mean, you're losing people because they're not vaccinated. You're losing people because they don't want to comply with mandates. Now you're losing people because they just can't even handle the news. How is anybody going to maintain any kind of stable employment around here anymore? How's stores going to stay open?
Right.
It's getting.
And Best Buy's holding on by a thread now, anyways.
Yeah. Well, all retail is for the most part, except for like Amazon and stuff, which is the greatest part about it, because Walmart, Amazon, they're doing just fine after all these lockdowns. But anybody else, forget about it. Let's go to stereo. We got Paul.
Okay, so this Rittenhouse rye has a distinct sweet smell before you even taste it. And it has that sort of natural sweetness that you can taste if you can actually feel past the burn. I've drank so many years that the burn doesn't affect me. I'm not bragging about that. It used to. I think I've just burned away feeling in my throat. Probably not something to be proud of. There isn't any kind of heavy smokiness or peatiness with this liquor. And it's very pleasant. Just a mild sweetness and mellow, I don't know, kind of note to it. It's $30 for 750 a fifth, a normal size liquor bottle. I would recommend this. It's worth $30. And if it pisses off the company, all the same.
Yeah,
Just buy another bottle.
I got a headline here. It's from the Washington Examiner. Kentucky liquor company disheartened that customers buying Rittenhouse whiskey to celebrate verdict. Okay, but thank you for that review. We can, the stream. Maybe we can get a sponsorship from Rittenhouse Rye. We'll get in touch. I doubt it though.
Yeah.
Let's go to Courtney in stereo.
Oh, I saw a really funny meme. I don't know if it was from chat. If it was, I'm sorry. But it was like Nicholas Sandmann and Kyle Rittenhouse now currently in negotiations over who gets custody of CNN on which weekend or something. It was hilarious.
Yes.
Yes.
That's pretty good. They should.
love it.
I mean, I can see it happening. Man, this next video is so rough. We got one more from Osis, and then we're gonna go to this crazy mentally ill mutant here.
Funny about that coming from Best Buy is I think today or maybe yesterday, but I believe it was today, they came out and said that they missed their stock market projections because of retail theft. I guess who?
Yeah.
I don't think it'll take much for you to guess. These people are not living in reality.
Nope. And it's getting so bad. Remember we talked last week about how the leftists can reject reality pretty long, but they can't do it forever because eventually reality and the narrative will reach a point to where they can't break apart. And Newsom actually came out and said, "Look, we're gonna get some task force. We're gonna increase the police on these retail outlets because the organized crime is getting so bad out there that even he has to acknowledge it now. So it's bad when Newsom is actually acknowledging the problem. So yeah, it's.
Wait, he's not defunding the police? He's not getting rid of police officers? Okay. All right.
No, not anymore.
Not anymore. Not after, the city that he was mayor of is being bombarded by retail theft left and right.
Yeah, I don't know how anyone could open a store in San Francisco these days. I just saw. Did you see the video? I think it just came out a couple of days ago of like 15 cars breaking into a Louis Vuitton or something like that, and just stealing
Yes.
$100,000 worth of. Oh my god,
Mm-hmm.
dude! I mean, how does that? How does insurance? I guess is the only way business can survive that. But how sustainable is
I
that?
mean, insurance doesn't cover rioting and looting, unfortunately. I've
Poof.
talked to my mom about this. A lot of businesses that have insurance,
They gonna got mutant
they don't
insurance.
survive. No, they don't have mutant insurance.
That
When it's
great business
rioting and
idea.
looting, they don't.
Somebody start up a mutant insurance company, and you will get rich, overnight. Come on.
Yeah, just set up shop in these super liberal areas where the police don't respond when looting happens, and you do insurance coverage for them. You'll probably make a nice, pretty profit. But yeah, a lot of businesses that do have insurance, their insurance policies don't cover rioting and looting, unfortunately.
I heard that there's still some venues and banks and buildings in Portland that still have just giant shards of glass hanging out of the window frames. They haven't even cleaned up from all the rioting yet. It's still just in
What's
completely dilapidated post-apocalyptic setting out there.
I mean, what's the point of cleaning it up? Because you clean it up, you get a new window. They're just going to come back the next day and destroy it again. I mean, I don't feel bad for them for setting up shop in Portland. They should have known what they were getting into. When it's like, dude, you're in the Antifa like hotspot where they all congregate and mutate all together.
Let's see. Ivan Popovac says, "Is this a pro-white thing or nah?" Well, it's I guess it's pro-European. Yeah, we're pretty pro-white. What's up,
I
future
mean,
gulag mates? What's up? Welcome to Pass.
I'm just I'm just pure humans at being their best, whether they're white or black or what. I'm not anti-white or anti-black. I'm just pro humans at being their best. So
Hmm.
you could take that as what you want it to be, but unfortunately, in the world that we're living in now, there's this huge anti-white narrative, and I'm sorry, but we need to discuss it because
Yeah.
there's a lot of white people on this planet just as much as black people. We need to discuss how much hatred there is about going on in our society about white people.
Somebody's got to talk about it, and that's why we're going to talk about the decentralization of media today. Because the Waukesha attack is a perfect example. You cannot get actual discussions of real current events from the mainstream media. There was or anything resembling mainstream media, even on their online press, their print press, their social media. There's a meme going around, not a meme, it's just a picture, a comparison where a guy logs into his news app on his browser, right? He looks at his news app and he looks for the news, and then he pulls up an article from CBS or another mainstream article and says, car accident in Waukesha, suspect is unknown, 16 people injured, no information, nothing informative at all. He jumps over to 4chan, which is completely decentralized, dark, deep, degenerate internet forums where they share information, all kinds of freedom out there to do whatever you want, really. And he got the name of the suspect, he's got the age, all of his prior convictions, he's got the exact vehicle, make, and model, year. He knows everything that happened about the incident on an alternative platform where people like us can talk about things. And it's not that we have an innate objective to be pro-white or pro-anything. It's just that there are some things that nobody else is talking about that we got to talk about. So, yeah, exactly. MA says pro-white is a loaded term, and that's kind of what I'm getting at here, is that we're not
Well,
pro-white, but we're pro-white. I mean, because that's what we have to talk about.
well, and I mean, Jeremy being a white dude, and then me, I'm mixed. I'm mostly European, so I have a lot of white people in my family. Like, there's nothing wrong with being pro or, just for, in my eyes, there's nothing wrong with being pro just humans in general. Because my family's in all shades. We got whites, we got super whites, we got super darks, and then I'm like in the middle. But I'm just pro just human beings being the best that they possibly can be. And unfortunately in our society, there's just so much hatred towards one end of the spectrum, and they just completely ignore the other end of the spectrum and vilify them and make them out to be heroes because of their skin color and because of oppression. And it's like, well, okay, by giving these people a platform, you are bringing these people down for nothing that they've done. It's ridiculous.
Let's go to stereo, and then we'll move on to the next story here. Paul?
Jogger insurance is a terrible idea. I'll tell you why. You'll have to pay out. The way to make money off that is to be as dishonest as every corporation
Well, yeah.
in history, basically, have some clause buried in there that if you have a George Soros, whatever his name is, DA, or if you voted in anti-police laws, that train of thought, if you have these leftoids destroying society and encouraging looting, that the policy doesn't apply. But thank you for your money.
Interesting. There we go. I like that. Yeah. Some small print somewhere. Courtney.
Speaking of the joys of Twitter, I just saw this update post from the Washington Post that said, here's what we know so far on the sequence of events that led to the Waukesha tragedy caused by an SUV. Like, what? So they're calling it a tragedy, and they're saying, oh, don't worry, it was just the SUV. These people are insane.
Yeah, and you see your headlines oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say he's ghostwriting the whip into a parade of people.
No, it's one of those self-driving Escapes. You know, the new Ford Escapes, they're self-driving. They can just you got crowd plow mode, just turn it on and you, right through.
I loved it. Oh my god. Yeah, the SUV is responsible, not the person driving it. So next time I get pulled over for speeding and the cop tells me I'm getting a ticket and it's going to go on my record, it's like, no, sir. It wasn't me that was speeding. It was the car. The car wanted to speed. It's ridiculous.
See, this is proof, though, that the media companies have chosen a particular strategy as far as their survival is concerned. And that is specifically that they have chosen to rely on the audience that they have captive right now and really, really just feed them in. There's no effort to kind of expand their audience, to grow their audience. And I think that's a sign that the companies are in a death knell. And they're not trying to grow and expand their audience because they're not even allowing for the possibility of a neutral or real fact that might draw in somebody like me or you. If I see a real headline from CNN, I am inclined to think, well, wait a minute, CNN's doing real news now? Okay, now in my head, the credibility of CNN is actually going up. If they said a black man plowed through the crowd, I would say, okay, CNN maybe not that bad. But they are foregoing my cooperation, my patronship to their platform in order to rely on their current customer base. And I think that's a sign, look from an economic perspective, that they know that they're in a really tough spot right now, and they gotta really stretch it to keep their audience, keep those dollars flowing in.
Yeah, Ivan Popovac says, "Do you have a brother? You remind me of another YouTuber."
I have two brothers, but I don't think either of them have YouTube channels. No.
Yeah, neither of them have YouTube channels. One lives in the forest, and the other, does his own thing.
Oh, they both live in the forest now, but
they both live in the forest now.
Yeah,
hell yeah!
I don't blame them. I'm going to be living in the forest here sometime soon, as well. But excuse me, I've got a lot of gas today. I literally just ate an entire pumpkin pie before I came on stream, so I'm working through the digestion process of that. I'm preparing for a pumpkin pie eating contest on Friday, so I'm not going to elaborate further. But let's go to the next story here. I want to present to you guys a test that you can use at home with your friends, family, things like that will save you a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of emotional stress. And it's very simple. It's based off of a fictional test called the Voight-Kampff test. For those of you who are sci-fi fans, you'll know the Voight-Kampff test is a mechanism from the movie Blade Runner. In Blade Runner, which is a movie about humans hunting non-humans who all look like humans. They all act like humans. We're all pretty much the same. Okay, there's no indication outwardly that somebody is not a human, but they're not human. And the test that you give is a series of questions, and based off the responses, you can determine if they're capable of processing emotions properly, things like this. Now, there's a very easy one. They're making it easier as time goes on. With current events, you can always find one of these, but the current one that I want to stress is simply, if you hear an opinion or somebody talking about Kyle Rittenhouse, or you present the topic of Kyle Rittenhouse somehow, neutrally or otherwise, and the reaction contains anything relating to the 2 words or 3 words, crossed state lines. If you hear those 3 words, you're dealing with somebody who has absolutely no interaction with reality. This is somebody who, oh, is that, okay, yeah, I'll kill that beep. No interaction with reality, and they get their news strictly from headlines. They don't watch the trials. They don't watch any of the current events. And that's just how you know that they're not actually a human being. They aren't capable of independent thought. They simply receive instruction like a computer, and then they commit the operation. They carry out the operation, and that is cross state lines. Kyle Rittenhouse crossed state lines with a gun to shoot people, things like that. Now, with that said, I want to give you one example from Amber Ruffin. I don't know who Amber Ruffin is, but her response to this verdict was making waves on Twitter. And you guys tell me if you think she even watched 1 second of the trial based on this reaction. You won't be able to hear this on stereo, but I'm going to play the video on YouTube.
Okay.
Or at least I'm going to try to play the video on YouTube. It might just be spinning. Okay, looks like it's not actually going to play. So you stereo people lucked out. I'm going to just explain to you in words what she says. She says, I can't believe that I have to say, in today's day and age, that it's not okay for a man to cross state lines with a gun, shoot people, and then get away with it. And then she goes on to talk about how the entire justice system is stacked against black people, which obviously doesn't mesh well with her the outcome of the Ahmaud Arbery trial, which just went the other way this morning. So this is fascinating. This is after the verdict, after the case, everything came out. We all know that he didn't cross state lines with the gun. He had family. You know, he had reason to be in Kenosha. It was only like 20 minutes away. We're not talking a half an hour, not even a half an hour drive, not an hour drive. It's not like he went from California to Texas to go shoot somebody. This is, pretty standard stuff. But again, this is the test, the NPC. You know what I'm saying? This person is not capable of interpreting reality whatsoever. And this is something you'll see consistent across all media platforms. Anybody who uses that key phrase, cross state lines, 100% of the time that I've seen that in play, it's always been an NPC. I don't know. What do you think, Delaney?
Well, I love how they use the cross state lines thing about Kyle Rittenhouse, but they do not even want to engage with the idea that BLM supporters cross state lines to riot and loot and pillage Kenosha, Wisconsin. They don't even want to mention that. And if you do mention that, you're a racist or you're a bigot. And it's just frustrating to me personally, because I watched the trial. I listened to the evidence. I watched the videos. I remember when those videos first aired on a lot of the YouTubers that I follow, like Slightly Offensive and Drew Hernandez. They were in the front lines and they got video evidence of all of that stuff. And if you even suggest that, they just don't even want to hear it. All they want to say is he crossed state lines. And I'm like, you guys don't even realize that how many people were there that were from Oregon, that were from California, that were from all other parts of the country. They were bussed in. They had caravans of people that were bussed in by BLM to come and riot and for who was it, Jacob Blake or whatever.
Yep.
And they don't even want to acknowledge that. They're just like, no, that's conspiracy. It's like, it's not a conspiracy. There's evidence that there were people bussed in, but you don't want to acknowledge that. All you want to do is focus on the 17-year-old white boy that was defending himself, defending the city. He spent the day before the whole riot started, cleaning up graffiti. He had a med kit on him.
Yep.
He was trying to help people. But y'all don't even want to acknowledge any of the other facts about the rioters. If y'all really want to get into the nitty-gritty, the BLM rioters had no right to be there. I felt like he should have been there. He had every right to be there. They didn't have any right to be there.
And again, this isn't about Rittenhouse. It's not about the leftists. It's about civilization, our society's ability to interpret reality as it's happening. We are incapable now. We are absolutely incapable. And this person she's not just has an opinion. She is on a platform saying this to who knows how many people, right? As if she's some kind of authority figure. Like there's some implicit authority because you have to think that she earned that position on TV somehow. But that's not the case. She was placed there because she was black, because she had the right opinion, because she was going to read the lines, et cetera, et cetera. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not as if the facts are hard to digest or inaccessible. I could understand if there was a barrier to entry. If this was a technical story about some kind of hacking event or something like that, that had a technical knowledge barrier that you simply couldn't interpret the facts, and then you went on and lied or
Mm-hmm.
whatever like this, okay, there'd be some allowance, some wiggle room for, some tolerance for that. But in this particular case, there is no barrier to understanding what happened. It's available everywhere if you just want to see it, and they choose, or I don't know how they somehow avoid it or block it out. But the end result is that they follow the lie all the way through from start to finish.
Yep. They are believers of the lie from start to finish, and if you try to wake them up from the lie, you are the enemy, you are the demon. It's no. You got to wake up from the lie. You can't just keep believing the lie and keep repeating the lie, because when the lie gets repeated, then it never dies.
And of course, as we've seen with the crime waves in California and with many other things, they can lie for a good period of time, but they can't lie forever. Eventually, reality will catch up to you. Let's go to Mojo. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Do you want to say something?
No, go ahead.
Let's go to Mojo the
Just
Watcher in
let's do the-
stereo.
Yeah, I literally had a Latina get upset with me this morning or this afternoon because I called him a black supremacist, and she said I had no evidence of that. And I said, well, his music.
Yeah,
He rapped about how he hated white people
he told
and
us.
alluded or implied to the destruction or the ridding of white people. And in response to his frustration, his misguided, dumbass frustration, he decided to drive his vehicle into a sea of children
And old people.
and killing 6 children. One being a young man, 8 years old, whose head was ran over. So
This is the brutal reality of this. These are the exact kind of stories that you would look back on history during the times when they were racist against blacks. When you heard about people getting dragged behind trucks, and hung from trees. I talked about that last week, and I've talked about it before. Guys, we're in the inverse now, where people can plow cars through crowds of white people in sheer, utter hatred for no other reason than they hate white people, and then the media will cover for them. All the institutions will cover for them. We're in a state of anti-whiteness right now. He's got a couple other follow-ups here.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so, driving your vehicle to kill white children is ungodly.
To say the least.
It's not righteous. It's inhumane. It's a ridiculous expression of frustration for any case, even though we know the Kyle Rittenhouse case was a fair trial with, again, a left-leaning judge who realized the situation, and the scumbag prosecutor and the scumbag lawyer sitting in front of him realized the scumbags that he killed, and the fact that this child would have lost his life had he not defended himself.
Absolutely.
But we've got black supremacists now, funded by the government, ideology funded by the government,
Okay.
This guy's smart.
running
He's got one more.
over, killing white children, and it's sickening. It's disgusting. And people who try to justify it are blowing me away. I don't even understand how you can use the Kyle Rittenhouse or anything to justify what this man did. He killed children. All right, this young boy's intestines and head ran over. I think his intestines were, he had issues with his intestines hanging out of his body. This boy, this is a baby, 8 years old. That's a baby.
Yep.
Death penalty.
Ideally.
We have to set an example here. We can't have this anarchist racist society. We just can't.
Yeah, and that's what we're talking about. That's what this whole stream is about. We're talking about the mutants. We're talking about the inhuman people. That's exactly what we're talking about. We've talked about the rise of these people, a system that creates these type of people. That's the whole point of the stream, is to talk about the system that is creating people like that guy who thinks it's okay to go out and do things like that, because society is a set of pipelines and conveyor belts that are putting people together like robots or toys, and then the end of the conveyor belt is guys like that. That's the whole entire point. So it's not shocking to me at all. It's I'm actually shocked that it's taken this long to see mass murders against white people, specifically for that reason. But it's awful all around. Let's go to Holly in chat.
It's cross state lines or 17-year-old with an AR assault weapon.
Yeah.
Those two are key for me.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's
me
a good
too.
one.
Me too, Holly.
She's got another one
Like,
here.
what is it?
It's also interesting.
Sorry, go ahead.
They were like, what is this? They're like, what does a 17-year-old have to do with need a assault rifle for? A military grade assault rifle? I'm like, to protect himself. Like, if you're gonna be in that frame of mind, what does a 125-pound female like myself have to do? Need a firearm for? I'm sorry, we all need firearms to protect ourselves. That's just the bottom line.
Yep, Holly's got another one here.
It's also interesting to listen to people who, for, oh God, how many months talking about the southern border, about how borders shouldn't matter, all of a sudden twist and turn into cross state lines.
Yeah, right. They care about borders now, when it's state borders. Oh my God, don't cross the state borders. Borders are sacred,
Yeah.
but borders everywhere
Borders are
else, that's, I don't care. They don't care. And May brings a good point in chat. She says, hate crime charges now. What are the chances this guy's going to get charged with hate crimes? What do you think?
I don't think he's going to get charged with a hate crime. He's
No.
going to get probably charged with vehicular manslaughter. I mean, honestly, he should be charged with murder, because if it was an accident, then, like I said, if it was an actual accident and he didn't mean to run people over, he would have stopped as soon as he hit that first person. But he kept going and he was mowing people down. He meant to mow down as many people as he possibly could.
Yeah, I think the intent will come clear. I think he's already told the police his intent, because they got motive real quick on that one. So I think there's more to it that we don't know that we'll find out in the future. Let's go to Kizza.
Honestly, I'm so sick to death of this state line bullshit. These are the same people who straight up chant, no Trump, no wall, no USA at all. So, again, they don't support nation states or borders. So why the fuck are they complaining about state lines? If you don't support nation states and borders, you cannot hide behind state lines. Okay? Why can't these communists ever not properly follow communism? That should be the real question.
Not competent enough
Well-
for that.
Well, yeah, and they don't even want to acknowledge that the Constitution, our Bill of Rights, supersedes borders when it comes to things like our ability to protect ourselves.
Yeah, this is the other thing too. Somebody bring us up in chat the fact that Facebook took that information down. There's so many different angles and so many interesting things about the story that indicate where society is headed. Facebook, Instagram, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know what all social media platforms that covered up for him, but they scrubbed all of his stuff immediately. Because at this point, these days, it's just a race to find out what the guy believed in, what kind of things he supported. And in this case, it was pretty obvious to see that he was a supporter of BLM. He had the rap songs where he talked about, hating white people, things like that. And that's what they don't want you to see. Ideally, everyone would die and instantly all their social media would erase, because then, we don't have to understand the true motives or intent, and they can just say whatever they want. But people who have resources or decentralized media go look for this stuff. You think CNN's looking at this guy's social media the second that it drops? Not really. No, it's other people on the internet looking through everything that they can to find motives, everything, intents, background, history, stuff like that. So we have to rely on them to do it for us. And they don't want it to happen. So it's only going to get worse. Social media companies are going to continue to cover for criminals as more and more hate crimes come out, blatant hate crimes like this. They're gonna refine their crackdown their processes. They're going to make it faster. You're not going to be able to find these people's pages in time once they die. So it's take advantage of it while we can, I say. Let's go to Paul in stereo.
One of my favorite Michael Malice-isms is tell your Facebook friend, insert thing here. It just occurred to me that if you want to be really spicy, that you tell people that if they're Blue Anon, if you accuse them of being in that cult, that it is part and parcel the same as being a Scientologist. Tell that to your Facebook friend. See that shit blow up. I bet it would be dynamite on Thanksgiving. Try it. Someone try it, please.
If I had a Facebook, I would.
Yeah, if I had a Facebook, I probably would too, but I got rid of Facebook in like 2016, and I've been super happy ever since.
Let's go to Holly.
There's the Twitter mob too that have come out and talked about what about if it was a young black man that was, self-defense,
There's that
etc.,
angle,
etc.
too.
He would have been shot on sight. Well, you look at the case of Breonna Taylor's boyfriend, who the police were serving a no-knock warrant on his house. He shot at police. He, again, was acquitted and was self-defense. He was acquitted with the same thing that Rittenhouse was, but of course, nobody talks about that one. And again, it was fully justified. Same thing.
Yep.
Absolutely good comparison. Thank you for that, Holly. Mojo's got another one here. I think we'll jump to the next story after that.
Yeah, you're right, Holly. They don't want a border. They're okay with giving millions of dollars to cartel members, MS-13 members, pedophiles, human traffickers, sex traffickers, organ traffickers, removing them off of the list. They're anarchists. Okay, they're weirdos, fascists who claim to be
Mutants.
anti-fascism. Isn't that ironic? Listen, with the Aubrey case, I look at that. I go, okay, well, I'm happy with the verdict. Okay, you got, I understand citizens arrest, but you can't just chase a guy and kill him. Whatever. I'm very happy with the Kyle Rittenhouse case. I think it was done well. And now I think we need to try to figure out how, we can help him live a protected life, because they're going to be people who want to kill him.
Yeah, there are.
That's the other thing. I mean, after this verdict came out, I didn't compile a list or anything, but there were people on Twitter saying that, basically putting out hits for the guy on Twitter. Like, guys, okay, somebody please kill Rittenhouse. One guy was like, I want to dump acid on his family and then kill him or something like that. And as far as I know, they haven't, they never get banned, they never get censored, they never get their posts deleted, anything like that. They just let that go through totally fine.
Yeah.
So that's fun. We got
Yeah.
next segment we're going to be talking about here is the education stuff. Now we just got done talking about the conveyor belt, the pipeline that creates guys like Daryl, what's his face, who killed those people in Waukesha. And we're getting that pipeline is accelerating. Okay, that's the best, easiest way I can put it. The pipeline is accelerating. The conveyor belt is moving faster. And it's starting in California. Now, we cover educational stuff on here a lot, but this one is, this one's like a big yikes situation here. Let's go to New York Times. This is an article from the New York Times that they recently put out regarding California state education standards that demand that teachers change curriculums to bring back racial identity into politics and everyday math lessons. Okay, yeah, so we got the CRT angle. They want to put like a race angle into math, but that's not the most scary part about this. If we scroll through here and we look deeper into the article, we find that there's some recommendations from a guy named Professor D.B. Martin. That's cited various times throughout this paper that has these recommendations inside of it. And they claim that he is a colorblind guy, but when you look up his ideas, he will tell you that he believes that math education is a project of, quote, violent white supremacy and racial capitalism. That's right. So
Wow.
there was a lot of buzzwords in there, so let me restate that for you in case you didn't catch it. He says he believes that math education, teaching you math, is a project of violent white supremacy and racial capitalism. Now, he doesn't stop there. He goes on to argue that math is so fundamentally violent and white supremacist. I don't know how math can be violent. I mean, I remember math being pretty awful back when I was in it in school, but I wouldn't ever classify it as violent. But he says it is fundamentally violent and white supremacist, that there should be a nationwide movement so bad and so racist and so violent that there should be a nationwide movement for black students to feel empowered to refuse oppressive conditions in their mathematics education and engage in mass boycotts and walkouts of math class.
Wow.
Yeah, so these are the recommendations being given to the state of California regarding their math curriculum. And I don't know if you knew this or not, but California is pretty big, okay? It's like the 5th largest economy in the planet. It controls a lot of what happens in America. And the current status of California is the future status of America. So this is kind of like a canary in the coal mine, and the canary is on the floor of the cage, convulsing and with blood coming out of every orifice right now at this point in time. So
Yeah, California total population right now is 39.15 million as of 2019.
yeah, and they don't want you to learn math in their schools. Now, I have no idea. I'll be honest. I don't know what it means to have non-white supremacist or non-violent math education. I'd imagine it probably is about the same type of math, but with, examples that are more relatable to black people. So instead of counting oranges or strawberries, 3 plus 3 strawberries, it's like 3 plus 3 what's an African fruit here? I don't know. I'm not you know what I'm
I don't
saying,
know what
right?
either.
You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm getting
Yeah.
at. So I have no idea what that means. But really all we know what this really means. This is the masking of the incompetence. Okay, as we've gone on long enough that they're really mad that they're looking at the numbers, and no matter what they do with these No Child Left Behind, with the minority acceleration programs, with tutoring, with all these programs and things that they've tried, they still can't manage to get the minority populations, aka predominantly black people, to perform at the levels of everybody else. And
Yeah.
instead of figuring out a system to functionally get them higher, or just acknowledge that maybe they can't on average score as high due to biological, cultural reasons that we're not going to get into on the stream because we want to maintain our presence on YouTube for at least a little bit longer, and they are covering that up and covering for the blatant incompetency just by erasing all measurement standards at all. So don't change the people, change the standard by which you measure them, and we can see that happening in the UC system as well. I don't know. Do you got any thoughts on that one, Delaney, before we move on to the UC story about how they have eliminated all standardized testing?
I mean, it's just a cop-out. Instead of admitting, hey, parents need to get more involved, or the teachers need to get a little bit more involved with their students and actually get them onto a certain standard of reading and writing and arithmetic, they're just copping it out to racism and to the fact that math is racist. If math was racist, why are Asians excelling at it? Far greater than every other race. Why are Asians doing well? Why are Indians doing well? Everybody else is doing so well, but they want to just cop it out to being racism. No, it's not racism that's keeping these students from getting good grades. It's the fact that they have crappy parents that don't get involved and make sure that their homework is done.
There you go. Yeah, that's definitely a big factor. We've got a story here from the Los Angeles Times. We go from the New York Times to the LA Times here, and this is a story that just came out. So we were talking about, what the curriculum is going to look like in K through 12 schools. Okay, so let's say you manage to graze through K through 12 and you kind of self-teach yourself math on the side because the schools aren't teaching it anymore. And you make it to college. You're like, oh man, I've been living in California my whole life. I want to go to UC Berkeley. I want to go to UC Irvine. I want to go to UC whatever. And, turns out that it will not be any better because according to the LA Times, UC, University of California system, slams the door on standardized admissions tests, nixing any SAT alternative. So we covered a while back about how UC wants to eliminate the SAT testing for criteria on their entrance exams. So generally, to get into a college, you have to score high on these standardized tests. And they're standardized because they're standardized. Everyone is supposed to be on somewhere on this scale. And again, blacks just don't perform as well as other races, particularly Asians. I'm not even talking about whites. We're like in the middle of the road here. So don't take this as like whites are so much smarter type thing. Asians are even smarter than us. But the point is, guys, now there is, what kind of criteria do we measure admissions based off of? Are we going to measure it at all? We're just going to open the UC system to anybody at all. So they went through and they looked at the SATs. They said nope, and then they said we're going to look at alternatives. And now what article is saying is that there are no alternatives either. So there are just going to be no standardized tests at all to get into the UC system anymore. And the UC system is massive. It's probably the biggest college system in California. And this is significant. This represents a giant step towards the elimination of any kind of performance standards, and largely the death of competence in America.
Yeah.
Okay, because you're not sending your best into these schools. You got to keep in mind, you can deal with this little tiny bubble, the world of America, where it's like, whites versus blacks and the racist history of America. At the end of the day, it's not just America, okay? That's a selfish, really closed-minded perspective. We're competing with China. We're competing with India. We're competing with all these other countries. And if our product, which is our students in this case, is coming out where they're not even getting standardized tests, do you think they're going to be able to compete with China? Do you think they're going to be able to compete with India? I think, and yeah, this is really foreboding for us as a country, for our future, the competence, the economic advancement, the innovation, all the things that made America great. You're seeing that get washed down the drain right now with the destruction of the academic system.
Yeah, I remember, I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago when we talked about, I think it was the Oregon public schools or was it Portland, that they were just like eliminating grades altogether, and how a lot of the colleges are just they're not even gonna look at your standardized test scores. Like, so it's just gonna be about race now from now on. Oh, remember we talked about how a lot of white people were lying on their college admissions and saying that they were Native American just so that way they can get in. Yep. It's like, is it really just going to be about race? Like, how racist is it to get into a college just because of your race?
That's what they're replacing
for your merits.
Yeah, that's what they're replacing merit with, is just your race. Like, are you black? How black are you? Is it 1 drop? Is it 4 drops? Well, we'll let you in if you're black enough, if you're a minority or whatever, because, white people are already reacting to the incentive that the colleges have set up, which is that we will hire minorities over you, regardless of how you perform. So that's a really good point. They're replacing merit with racism.
I think that's really damaging. And if we're kind of rescinding for the sake of progression. Like, we want to progress and we want to, elevate black voices and get them into colleges, but I don't think putting them into college simply because they're black is the way to go, or putting them in college simply because they're Native American or because they're Asian. I think that there needs to be some kind of standard, because not everybody's going to graduate from college. You have to have the drive. You have to have the conviction. You have to be able to do your homework, show up to school, and have that drive and have a goal in mind when it comes to going to college. And I think us just letting people in because they want to go it's going to be a waste of money. And these poor people are going to get into debt for nothing. Just because,
that's a good point too.
Yeah, to college.
It's almost like they're targeting. It's like the loan sharks. They target vulnerable people to put them in a bunch of debt. It's almost like that, but for public loans from the government to go into college. Like, hey, you're really stupid, but do you want to go to college? Come on over here, buddy. Sign right here, and you'll be good to go. $100,000 later, you are in a hole for your entire life, economically destroyed, and low IQ because you shouldn't have got in the first place.
Yeah, and then they're going to go to college, they're going to flunk out and have all this debt behind them and blame racism still. It's like, okay, well, you got in because of your skin color, and it's not our fault that you failed to perform. They're going to blame race. It's a lose-lose. So I get why they're saying that there's really no solution, because if they have a standard, it's racist. If they don't have a standard and the person fails because there's no standard, it's racist.
Yeah, somebody in the YouTube chat said they want low IQ people they can manipulate. And that's exactly what we're talking about. Remember, we're talking about the pipeline, the conveyor belt, the system that produces the NPCs, the mutants, the robots, the leftoids, whatever you want to call them. Insert your favorite word there. This is the system that creates them. And that's our job, is to observe and report on this system so that you can see the future of America. Because if you don't understand what the infrastructure is, that's the future is lying upon, you got a pretty good idea of what the future is going to look like. And the reason that this is the way that it is right now is because the colleges are reacting to incentives. It's not that they're just sitting there saying to themselves, "Oh, well, let's get black people because I hate white people." It's not that necessarily. It's people who were previously brainwashed getting into the HR departments, getting into departments that measure the performance of universities, and they create things like spreadsheets, PowerPoints, and other very mundane things that say have like pie charts and graphics and say, well, last year we admitted 15% blacks, and well, that's really low. We want to aim for 30 because our diversity score will go up, or whatever it is that they're trying to achieve. So they're just reacting to the perverse incentives that are set up anyway. I wouldn't even say this is necessarily malice. It's just that the whole entire system is operating off of perverse incentives. And that trickles all the way down to the job applicants themselves who would lie, or the college applicants themselves who lie on the tests about their race because they are operating under perverse incentives as well. So it's from top to bottom, perverse incentives, and that is just a system that is, that is a very sick, very, very ill system. I don't even know if that can be fixed.
No, it really can't unless they just go back to standardized testing. But they don't want to do that because, again, it's a double-edged sword. They can have the standard testing, but then when people don't get in because they're not testing high enough, then it's racist. And if they let people in because of their race and they have crappy scores, then they fail, it's racist. And I think it's sad that a lot of people don't even realize that you can go to community college and eventually transfer over and start low, get your toes wet in the college system and see how it is, and then transfer to a bigger university if that's what you want. But our school system is designed to manipulate children into believing that you have to go to college right away. You have to go to college. It's the only way you'll be successful is if you go to college.
Yep.
They don't even mention trade school. They don't even mention community college. It's you either go to UC or state school or you will fail in life. Without even acknowledging that a lot of the most successful people you've ever known never even went to college.
Yeah, and somebody in chat said that this is the school to progressive pipeline. Exactly, yeah. They said, let's see, where was it? MA had a point here, I think. Where was it? No, I lost it. It was really good, too. Oh, yeah, diversity is an industry. That's what I was trying to say. That was what I was trying to get to. When these people are looking at spreadsheets and PowerPoints, it's because they have diversity consultants who come in and look at their business, and they tell them, they look through all their statistics, and they say, well, you know what, Nike, I see your numbers here. I think you're not hiring enough black people. We're going to give you a diversity score of 3.0. Needs improvement. Opportunities.
Right.
There's some opportunities here. That's how they always say it. You're not doing bad. You're not performing poorly. There's some opportunities here for growth. And they're reacting to the industry that is set up, which is the result of people coming out of college at the end of that pipeline. So you can see the chain of events that's happening, cause and effect, live right before your eyes. Now, you probably wouldn't be conscious of that unless people like us were pointing it out to you, because they're definitely not talking about that on any kind of other news outlets. But speaking of that, we got like 20 stereo comments piled up here. We can't go through all these. I'm going to just skip through a little of this. I'll get one from everybody. So we'll start with Mojo here.
Okay, yeah, they want to dumb us all down. Okay, they don't just want to dumb white people down, black people down. They want to dumb white people down too. Let's just throw it out. It's racist. It's bullshit.
It is
This
racist.
is all part of the Chi-Com's agenda to make Americans stupid.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
they failed
It's working.
to a great degree with emojis. They expected us by now to be talking with emojis, smiley faces and tongue faces and kissy faces, and this is what emojis were about.
Thumbs up.
Wasn't about expression, okay? And now they're moving this critical race theory bullshit that suggests that, oh, if you're black, you'll always be oppressed, and you're always a victim. Somebody's always out to get you. There's a boogeyman. And if you're white, if you're successful, it's because you're a piece of shit, and you're a racist, and your whole family's a racist, and you come from a racist lineage and a racist system.
Yep.
Regardless of, your great-great-grandparents being immigrants from an entirely different land or
Yep.
Yeah. Well, he's got one follow-up here. I'll let him get to.
I've studied into critical race theory. I'm totally in opposition of the way that they are attempting to go about critical race theory.
Absolutely.
Critical race theory isn't history. I heard somebody try to tell me that, it's critical race theory is history. No, it's not. If you look at Ibram X. Kendi's definition of it, it's the anti-racists. And what is an anti-racist? Somebody who basically goes along with everything the emotional, gynocentric black community feels. again, it's all about feelings. It's not about facts.
Feels before
Right?
reels.
It's about how do I feel. It's okay. Well, how are these old systems of oppression affecting me now? Even though the systems have been amended, corrected, and there are other systems in place to prevent that system from becoming a monopoly that Black people happily invest in, participate in, and benefit from. The fact that we believe that Black people, we want to believe that Black people are nothing but victims is actually an insult and slap in the face to me.
Absolutely. I love this guy. This guy is on it, man. I love it.
Well, he said my favorite word, which is gynocentric, because nobody understands that we live in a gynocentric society right now, and that's
Yep.
not necessarily the root of all of our problems, but is one of the biggest contributors to it. As he said, it's that the feminine mentality, which is why I talk about the hyperfeminization of America, that leads us to
Yep.
thinking in these overly emotional ways over the overly rational. Let's see here. We got more stereos to go through. Paul.
I love dispensing white pills. The idea that defeat is impossible against these people.
I got white pills.
One of the best white pills was, I'm relaying this from Curtis Yarvin, one of his interviews, I think it was with Michael Malice, and I think it was June 2020. World War I propaganda was like the Hun is going to cross the Atlantic and rape your sister in America. That was news for 7-year-olds. And then fast forward to World War II, and it's the Nazis are just whatever they're gonna do. They're gonna kill the Jews. They did do that, but the propaganda at the time was aimed in a slightly different direction, like they're gonna take over the world. Aimed for a 13-year-old. Consumers of media now are far more intelligent and far more critical of the news that's pushed on them. People are more resistant to propaganda, and that's a true fact.
Absolutely.
Yep, that's exactly what we talked about earlier. When you're trying to get information on a news story, we know that what we're being told is not the full story. We have to dig now. We understand that we have to dig. And I have stories that I put up on my docket to talk about on this stream where the article, the headline sounds good. I look into it, I read it, I dig into it a little bit, and I find out that it's BS or it's fake, and I don't talk about it on the news. Now, I have to do that for my credibility, but people, I haven't a reason to do that. It's because I don't want to seem incredible to you people. But in general, the public, they have no incentive to dig into these stories. So, of course, whatever feels best, they're just going to take it and absorb it and repeat it and go with it. And that's how you get cross state lines. You cross state lines.
Yeah, like underage man with the assault rifle crossing state lines to kill a bunch of people who were peacefully rioting.
Yep, right. Paul's got another one here.
Just to clarify, as a follow-up, not all people, obviously. Not Blue Anon, not QAnon, certainly.
Yes. Right.
Not all.
The people who are, we call those people engaged. That's how I like to refer to them anyway. We've got Brohan Sebastian Bach here.
All this stuff's by design, dude. Like George Carlin said it best. He goes, why the school systems will never get better? It's because they don't want a population full of people who are able to have independent, critical thought, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, they want a bunch of dummies to just do what they say, right? So it's all by design, bro.
Sounds like
I love that, dude.
Sounds like Keanu Reeves in a what's that movie? Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Oh, man.
I love it though. It's not a like a bash to you, dude. I love it. I think it's great.
That's great. All right, Mojo's got one. Then we got Dr. Pete up next.
And Black people don't perform well on standardized testing because our again, yes, we are victims of old systems of globalist government that have destroyed us. There are white people and Black people in globalist government. Predominant majority of them are white or Asian, but they are the globalists who have destroyed our community. So much so to the point, because we are a microcosm, so much so to the point that we have a single motherhood rate. We have this insane amount of trauma within our communities. And yes, we do terrible when it comes to reading, writing, and arithmetic. That is because of the community of which these individuals are bred and raised within. We need to do more about fixing that and taking some self-accountability and turning some things around as a community, as a country, then we need to worry about killing white people or taking away standardized testing altogether.
Yes. Thank you.
Delaney's
Man,
giving you
I
a
say that-
standing ovation.
I say that all the time because I say that all the time. I'm like, what's wrong with, instead of blaming white people and blaming racism for the troubles, why can't they just take accountability, raise their children right, get involved with their schooling, make sure that their kids are up to standards when it comes to reading, writing, and arithmetic, instead of blaming it all on white people or blaming it on, the people that are smarter than them. You have every capability of getting to that level, of being just as smart as, an Asian or a white person. It's all up to you, but there's none of that. It's all just blame the white people because white people oppressed us. And because they oppressed us, we don't have any rights when it comes to, we don't have any capability of getting smart and being smarter than them. It's like, instead of blaming, how about just get as smart as everybody else? Don't blame everybody else.
Now, think about this. We can't forget the iron law of woke projection, and that is the law that states that pretty much anytime the left is accusing you of doing something, it's what they're doing themselves, and they're trying to cover for that fact. In this particular case, if an objective observer, which is, something that we like to call ourselves as alt-centrists, we like to try and observe situations from an objective perspective, as if an alien came down to Earth and is seeing it for the first time. If an alien saw white people predominantly advocating for taking away math education, advocating for destroying the education of blacks, predominantly blacks, they would assume that they are trying to destroy the future of those black people. So I think it's safe to say, venture a guess, that the leftists actually really want black people in a situation like this. I've got a picture on the screen here for those who can't see on stereo of a e-waste recycling dump in Africa. So I don't know if you know this or not, but when America's done with all their electronic tech trash, we send it to Africa and other places like China, and then they take it apart piece by piece by hand in giant dumps, and they take out all little scrap pieces of gold, all the little scrap pieces of metal, the wiring. They just take it apart for like $1 a day if they're lucky. So this seems like what they want the black people. They want the black people back in Africa. They want them unsuccessful. They want them to be poor, depraved, not educated. Because that's why these people are pulling apart tech trash, is because they're not educated. They don't know how to provide value in they didn't get a good education. And it seems like they're trying to recreate that same effect here. But instead of being a slave to a tech trash pile, they're going to be a slave to, the college system, the debt system, the credit system, you name it. There's all kinds of systems that they can be slaves of here in America, and that's what it apparently, from an objective observer standpoint, that's what it appears that they're trying to create out of these people.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, we call it the debt cattle effect. Like, you're gonna be in debt to somebody. It's up to you to decide who you want to be in debt to. Do you want to be in debt to the federal government? Do you want to be in debt to the college system? Or just be in debt to yourself? Like, be the best person that you could possibly be and be in debt to yourself, and always work on building better than the debt that you already have.
Yep. Let's go to Dr. Pete in stereo.
I like what you're saying. I guess I think this notion of best or having a fixed, I think all the research now is saying that there's no fixed best, that how you operationalize best and what you put value on is so varied. That motivation, openness, desire to learn is probably superordinate to intelligence in terms of overall performance and success. So that's a big thing, right?
Yeah, that's
Great point.
It's like you can if you're resilient and you have grit, you can do better than if you're smart. That's a trip. Fix versus, growth mindset. Check that out. Carol DeWitt. Pretty good shit.
I love you, man.
What's up, you guys? I'm Dr. Pete.
Dr. Pete. Jamming
love the
out
beats
on
in
a
the back,
Wednesday
man.
night. Yes, sir. Thank you for that comment. You're absolutely right. That raises a really good question. Thank you for that, Dr. Pete. The question is, are we thinking past the sale when it comes to standardized testing and how we measure performance of intellect in America? Thinking past the sale, meaning have we been led to believe without actually being explained why that standardized testing is a good way to measure what best is? Are these the characteristics that really translate into a good quality, flourishing, economically thriving person? I would argue that they do not. So I would, in a certain sense, I disagree, or I agree with eliminating that standardized test, but eliminating any kind of merit at all, that's a little too far. You know what I'm saying? We need to figure out a more modern way to measure how somebody can succeed in the economy, and maybe measure that way. Or,
Yeah, instead of accepting people that go into and waste $100,000 on getting a gender studies degree, I would rather people who are going to go to college to be engineers, to be doctors, to be lawyers, because those are more economically viable solutions and things that you kind of need to go to school in order to do. But instead, we kind of just let a bunch of people going into college to get these stupid degrees that don't mean anything and are not going to be economically viable, and then they blame it on the UC system for, racism or whatever it may be. It's ridiculous.
yeah, let's go to Alex in stereo.
Even in this review, I'm trying to be as calm as I can be, but the thing is, you're actually pervading the problem further to the point of saying that there's a somewhat grading system. For that exact reason, to expect people to excel better than the group that they're in, it's not really helping, it's just perpetuating the issue, and that's the issue in itself. And people need to understand that the best way to fix a problem is to look internally.
Let's see, where do I want to take this one? Okay, I get. Well, I don't really get what you're saying. I'll be honest with you. You're saying that because we want to test people, we are kind of perpetuating the problem here. But we have to have some way to measure people's way to understand objective reality, because some things are objective. Okay, and I think you seem to be maybe blurring subjective and objective, which is fine. A lot of people, kind of cross the line between objective and subjective reality these days. But subjective is where you're talking about my personal truth, my internal perspective, my view of things like that. Objective reality can be measured, and your ability to interpret objective reality can be measured, and that's what standardized tests are. It's, can you tell me what 2 + 2 is? It doesn't matter what you feel. It doesn't matter what your past is. It doesn't matter what your background is. If you're abused, if you're a genius, if you know objective reality, you should come up with the same answer. And that's what those are testing. And we have to, again, dude, we're competing with other countries. We can't just eliminate merit altogether, because that means you don't get to play on stereo anymore. That means you get to work in the salt mines all night. And I don't think you want that. So,
Yeah, nobody wants to work in the salt mines anymore.
let's go to Kiza.
On the subject of trying to compete with India and China, I should warn you, Jeremy Delaney. The best students of China and India do not perform in China and India. They're underperforming outside of those countries.
Yeah.
As Thomas Sowell correctly
They come here.
pointed out back in the 80s. They do well outside of their countries. And yeah, those IQ rates may seem a little inflated in China, but then again, these are the same people who are too stupid to realize that they're literally believing in a foreign ideology. The leader's completely illegitimate by definition, and they'll still happily bow down to it. I guess maybe they're just the perfect interpretation of book smart but not street smart. Just a thought.
Thank you. I also appreciate the playback of our stream in the background there.
Right? Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think you're head on. Any comments on that one, Delaney?
No, not really.
Osis.
He is right that
Okay.
he is right that the Chinese and the Indians are coming here.
Well, they come to our schools, and that was a big thing. Is the influence of Chinese students on our education system. Or used to be a big thing. Of course, it's not anymore, because China just gets a pass for everything these days.
Yeah.
Let's go to Osis here.
Let's be honest, we're not really competing with China, because almost everything we've done
Yeah.
since Biden got into office has been kneecapping us against China. China's going to eat our lunch. We
Yeah.
were already screwed before, but now it's,
Yeah, it's
it's
really true.
just, we're fucked. We're totally fucked, and our government is the one fucking us. They're taking all that Chinese money for whatever reason and extracting their wealth from us as well and blowing out our currency through inflation. it's really bad. I just the thing is I don't know how to counteract it. All the investments suck because in my opinion, I know you're a crypto guy, but I think the world governments are going to fuck over crypto too. So I have no idea where to go with my money.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely that black swan event that's coming, and but I don't think it's going to wipe out crypto entirely. And yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think one thing this is what I've been saying recently. I'm kind of testing out this theory, seeing how people receive it. The technology is going to outpace their ability to regulate it. I don't think people really truly fully understand or comprehend what's happening in the crypto space right now. And I've said this phrase before multiple times, but it literally is the biggest wealth transfer in the history of mankind. And if you're smart about it, you'll get out before that happens. And then hopefully that will leave enough free-thinking people with enough resources to kind of recreate something that represents, objective reality. Mm-hmm. Dr. Pete's back.
Yeah, but black is not really, nor is white even really a thing. There's no genetic basis for it. It's trying to give some equal opportunity to folks who've been disenfranchised. So, if they're driven and they're held to the same standards in the class, getting in doesn't really matter. It's all about what you do when you're in the class. Now, if they can't perform, they can't perform. If they need to supplement or get support, that's on them. Then character issues will come into play. I don't know, you guys are burgeoning onto some interesting concepts, particularly given race as a social construct really used to divide. Mm-hmm. So now that they're gone from marginalizing to including, folks are now having a problem with race. Interesting.
Well, I don't even know what that word means, including. Marginalizing versus including. It's almost as like there was something written down in a book somewhere. It said, we are going to set up testing in a way that excludes this particular group of people. And I don't think that's the case. I think there's a group of people who is not us, observing that other particular group of people is doing poorly on every measurement that they look at. And they're interpreting it in a way that it implies that they are assuming an intention on the behalf of people who set that system up. And I have yet to hear any evidence that system was set up that way. So the marginalizing and including thing, I don't really understand that. I would like to hear an explanation. But I don't know. What do you think, Delaney?
I mean, I kind of agree that, yes, we don't want to exclude people out because of their race or their skin color. Mm-hmm. But the whole idea that we just get rid of the standardized test because certain people might not perform as well. I'm sorry, that's not a smart thing. We already have enough dumb people in college. We don't need more dumb people that won't be able to perform once they get up to the college level of education.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a few people in chat that are a little mad about the people who claim race isn't real. Now, let's agree with Dr. Pete and say that race, genetic level, because that's how he defined it, a genetic basis for determining quote unquote race. Let's just say yes. Let's agree with him and say, yeah, there's no genetic basis. However, you can't deny that there are cultural groups who all share the same cultural practices and all have correlations with, particular levels of crime or single parenthood or education levels or whatever it may be. And then, of course, you can say there's causes for that too. But culture does have an effect on outcome, and I don't think any of us who's an adult can disavow that fact. And culture itself is powerful enough to create these kind of incomes. So, I mean, we never said that this is based on genes at any point in this stream. We simply say that this group, this ethereal group that's called blacks, whatever you want to classify it as, whether it's due to culture, genetics, behavior, family problems, you name it, they are doing worse on all versions of standardized testing. And we're not explaining why. We're just looking at people who are trying to tell us why and observing that they have no actual solid evidence.
Yeah, and the people who are telling us why are blaming it all on racism instead of blaming it on the culture.
Right.
Like, how about instead of blaming it on the culture like they should and say, you know what, We need to get our butts in gear and get more involved in our children's lives so that way our kids can have better lives than we did. They just want to blame it on the evil white man that wants to keep black people out of college.
Nature and nurture. Yep. There's two flips. There's two sides to that coin, and we can completely discount nature, but nurture still plays a big role in the outcomes there. So I would say that in response to Dr. Pete. Thank you for your comment, though. Kizza.
Actually, Jeremy Delaney, I propose a solution to this issue of education. Privatize the entire education system.
I like
As
that.
in, not a single penny of your taxes goes to these schools. They all become privatized. So the only way these schools get paid is by advertising themselves as actual good schools, and they actually have to prove themselves in the world of the market. Let's try that for, let's say, 10 years. And let's compare the tests and education standards and IQ afterwards. Just a thought.
Well, that's the thing. And as we always advocate here on the alt-centrist podcast / weekly narrative, whatever you want to call it, as alt-centrists, the general philosophy that we follow is decentralization, because when you give something like education to the hands of the government, well, what do? They turn it into a system of perverse incentives like this, where there is no competition. You remove all competition. There's no incentives for colleges to say, hey, look at how much better of a student we produce. Like, show me stats like on a basketball screen where you've got the star player from each team and their stats. Show me the star average player from every college and their stats. What do you output as a product? Because students are your output. So show me what the competitive advantage is for me going to your college. That would be the system that we would have if the government wasn't involved in this. So, of course, I agree with you. The answer to that is decentralization and privatization.
I mean, I kind of agree with that as well. I mean, for a while there, our college systems, especially in California, were actually doing really well because there wasn't as much government spending into the UC system as it is now. And it was a lot tougher to get college loans back then than it was now. Now you used to have to go to a bank, apply for a loan, tell them like, I'm going to go to school for this, this, and this. Now it's just, here's financial aid, here's FAFSA, here's, the Bell Grant, there's this, there's that. And even if you're going to school for lesbian
Because the loans are public,
dance
they're
theory,
government loans, yeah. Let's see here. American culture is at hyper speed, becoming destroyed by our legal institutions. No-fault divorce and the Federal Reserve are in combination destroying the family unit totally and completely. Well said, Paul. Well said indeed. Let's go to Osis and chat. We got 2 more stereos after that, and then we got probably our final story of the night because we are getting so many stereos today.
I
It
know.
seems to me this is all going by design. The Rockefellers were a main contributor to the national push for education. And
That's what they want.
John Rockefeller quoted for saying, I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of workers. And one of his advisors, Frederick T. Gates, in our dream we have limitless resources and people to yield themselves with perfect docility to our molding hand. The present educational conventions fade from our minds, and unhampered by tradition, we work our own goodwill upon a grateful and responsive rural folk. We shall not try to make these people or any of their children into philosophers or men of learning or of science.
There you go. I mean, that sums it up perfectly right there.
That does. That's wow. Damn, I didn't even know that's what he said.
Yeah, that is exactly what is resulting right now. What's up, CT? Welcome to the chat. Haven't seen you in a while, buddy.
Hello.
Let's see here. I'm just going through the chats, make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay, hopping over back to stereo. Paul.
Diversity is more than a mere industry. It is part and parcel of the cathedral, the decentralized power structure
Yes.
of America. Equal opportunity offices. That's law. Like every corporation, private or public, I should say, or government offices, they all have equal opportunity officers. And these are essentially, not apparatchiks, what's the word? I mean, it is like that. But these are, progressive party operatives, and they have far more loyalty and efficacy and legal teeth behind what they do, arguably, or maybe only as powerful as a party operative in the Soviet Union. They've actually put in their belief into law. That's the absolute state of things
Yes.
right
Yes. See, it's like China. We're basically like China in that respect, where you've got party members who are running, or parts of big corporations, things like that. The government it's got its hands in everything to a large degree. That's where we're going, or not where we're going. That's where we are, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. We're on that train. I mean, they're driving it now. At first we were driving it, and now they're driving it. So good job, everybody.
Let's go to Courtney.
Yeah, they put this idea in your head. Just go to college. You're going to have a good job. You're going to have much better prospects. It's the biggest scam, I think, maybe not the biggest, but it's one of the biggest scams in history.
It's going to be its whole own chapter in the history book of America, and that's for sure. Let's go. Speaking of history, I want to talk a little bit about COVID. Because, we haven't talked about COVID at all yet today, which is a nice, refreshing change of pace. We're just talking about the general destruction of America otherwise. But let's bring it back home to COVID, because there's some interesting COVID news that came out regarding information. And do you know what an FOIA is, Delaney?
Freedom of Information Act.
Yes. So under the Freedom of Information Act, private citizens, can request information from companies. And there's a lot that we would like to know about these vaccines, the medical procedures that are happening, the data that goes behind the numbers that we're seeing. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of FOIA requests flying around right now. One of the most pertinent ones, was requested of the vaccine safety data from Pfizer. So they were presented with an FOIA request regarding their vaccine safety data and the testing. Now, you would think, with government bureaucracy, red tape, processing, things like that, that it would take a while, probably a couple months, to get that data back, right? Because they got to redact particular sensitive information, confidential stuff, et cetera, et cetera. They got to sanitize the data first before they can hand it out, right?
Absolutely.
So it's understandable to expect a certain duration of time, but I'm curious, do you think it's reasonable for the FDA to be requesting 55 years to release the Pfizer vaccine safety data, which is exactly what they have just done?
Well, considering they didn't do long-term testing before they released the vaccine, it doesn't surprise me that they want to wait 55 years because, there was no long-term data. So, of course, they're going to be like, no, 55 years.
So they
that
need
way we
some
can see the
time to
actual...
get some safety data because they got FOIA requested. They don't have any.
Yeah, they don't have any. So they're in their mind, they're like, well, we don't have any data to give you, so we got to wait for that, and it's going to take about a few generations for us to get that long-term data that you're requesting. So just hold, please. 55 years. You may be an old granny by then, or maybe dead, but you're going to have to wait.
So in case my segue was too convoluted for you, let's get into exactly what's happening here. This is an article from Reuters.com. FDA wants 55 years to process Freedom of Information request over vaccine data. Ooh, this is great. I love the dystopian future. It's great. Freedom of Information Act requests are rarely speedy, but when a group of scientists ask the federal government to share the data it relied upon in licensing Pfizer's new COVID vaccine, the response went beyond typical bureaucratic foot dragging, as in 55 years beyond. That's how long the FDA, in court papers this week, proposes it should be given to review and release the trove of vaccine-related documents responsive to the request. If a federal judge in Texas agrees, interesting that it's Texas, plaintiffs, public health, and medical professionals for the transparency can expect to see full records in 2076. Now that's reassuring, isn't it? I'll be like 80 years old, and then I'll know if I should have taken that vaccine or not. I'll be able to decide at that point. And hey, what did I tell you? This is kind of the simulation winking back at me, because I did say I'll take it when I'm like 70 or 80 and it doesn't matter anymore. So here we go. Now I will have the available data to make the measurement, and I can decisively say I am pro-vaccine. I'm ready and willing to take it as soon as I get to see that data. I can't wait to take it when I'm 85 years old.
Right. Yeah. And then by then, that's when you want to take the vaccine because you really are at risk of dying from it.
Right.
Because as we've been saying for the last like year or so about this whole COVID thing, it only kills fatties and oldies. So by the year 2076, you and I will both be ancient. It's like, okay, we might need to take this vaccine now, so let's do it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But by then they're probably going to have like 18 booster shots. So I don't want to take all 18 vaccines.
That's a little conservative. 3 per year. I mean, they're looking at triple digits here.
Yeah, they're okay. 30.
Yeah, this is pretty hilarious. And this is Clown World, folks. This is what we're talking about with Clown World. And it's Clown World, why? Because in 1967, the FOIA law requires federal agencies to respond to information requests within 20 business days. However, the time it takes to actually get the documents, quote, will vary depending on the complexity of the request and any backlog of requests already pending at the agency. So they're relying, their excuse now is that, well, we've got, that same department has like 700 other requests, so we can't handle that. Now, what do we talk about here all the time, which is why we advocate for decentralization, is because the government, once it gets to that stage, once it becomes responsible for processing things like information requests, which that's not its job to begin with, then it gets so inefficient that it completely locks everything down. Now we're in a case where, okay, even if they have 700 on deck and they process them all, in order, then it might take like 10 years to even get to this thing because just the sheer incompetence and inefficiency of the government. But I think this goes beyond a little sheer incompetence and inefficiency. It's got to be something else going on here, right? 50 years.
Yeah, 50 years. Like I said, they're going to say 50 years because they simply don't have the data that the people are requesting because this vaccine was rushed and wasn't properly tested and is being tested right now. So it's being tested right now. We're not going to know the long-term effects for about, a few generations. So it makes sense that they're saying wait 55 years because there's no long-term data to even turn over for these FOIA requests.
Well, it could be that. It could be also that, there's something in there they don't want us to see. They know very well what's in the data. And you got to remember, this was used as justification for them deploying this vaccine worldwide. This isn't just like a little, like this town had a nuclear outbreak, so we gave them this particular brand of iodine, and it turns out that the safety in that production wasn't so bad, so we got a class action lawsuit. No, this is worldwide distribution of this one company's product, and the approval of which relied upon data that we will never get to see now. So it doesn't really instill a lot of confidence. If they were really trying to win over the anti-vaxxers, if they were really trying to get everybody vaccinated, get everybody on board, team vaccine, then obviously they know this is going to be counterproductive for them on that front.
I mean, if they honestly really want me and are going to try to force me to take this vaccine after they say I have to wait 55 years to get the data that I'm requesting via FOIA, that's not going to make me want to put it in my body any more than I do now. I'm sorry, this makes me want to do it less. It's not going to incentivize me and be like, oh, I have to wait 55 years to get the proper data or to get the information that I need about what's going on. 55 years, I'm going to be ancient in 55 years. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, Clown World, folks, 55 years. Is that sufficient for you? What do you think? Let's say you're pro-vax, you got the vaccine, and you see this, and you're thinking to yourself, yeah, that'll show them. Those anti-vaxxers, they'll find out in 55 years that this was safe all along. Does that sound weird coming out of your mouth at all? Is there anything in your brain that's throwing alarms, alerts, red flags, anything at all? I'm curious. That's what I want to know. Let's go to Paul in stereo.
55 years. That's like this shit about World War II, like these classified facts in World War II. Like,
oh yeah,
not the Manhattan Project, but these super dark operations are going to be classified for like 70, 90 years. They're a little bit longer, but what does that say about these vaccines?
Yeah,
it's like a war it's an internal war. This is fifth generational warfare.
Yeah, this is great because it gives the illusion that they're responding to this. It gives the illusion that they are reacting and they're going to give you the data, but it's so far down the line that you would have forgotten. We'll be on the pandemic number 18. It won't even be boosters for COVID anymore. It'll be an entirely new pandemic. We already saw Gates talking about, what was it, some new disease, not a new disease, but a reemergence of like measles or something like that coming out.
Yeah, I think it was the smallpox.
Smallpox, yes, thank you. Yeah,
smallpox.
he's already talking about smallpox coming back out. We've got countries running, simulations for outbreaks, things like that. Guys, this is just a test run, okay? We just took this car off the lot, gave it a 5-minute drive down the freeway. There's a lot left in this puppy that we are going to be squeezing out of it, and we need some time for you to just put your suspicions aside. 55 years should be long enough. You'll be on pandemic number 5 by then.
Yeah, if they had said like it's going to take us a year to give up this information, or 2 years, okay, that's a little bit suspicious. But me as the person that understands that there was no long-term testing for this vaccine, a year to 2 years to release the information about it, that's reasonable. But 55 damn years for me to wait for information, that's ridiculous.
And it may come to pass that something expedites this, or maybe the FDA's request is shot down and the judge says, no, you got to give it to me within a year or something like that. So this isn't the end of the story, but just the simple fact that the FDA came out and requested 55 years is the only thing that you need to know about this story. Let's go to stereo. Excuse me. Monday morning dullard.
Yo.
Yo, what's up?
Yo.
Okay, well, I didn't need to play that twice, but there you go. Thank you for that.
Yo.
Appreciate that. Well said.
Very insightful.
Yeah, this is rough. So, Miguel El Chicano in the YouTube chat says, what about the OSHA suspending the mandates? Yeah, I think we had that on the docket or talked about it last week. I think we did talk about that last week. There were a couple stories that I left off because we went long. But, OSHA had to suspend the mandates. And I think the reasoning was, well, no. First of all, they came out and said, we can't really enforce it because we don't have the employees, which, again, sometimes government inefficiency works in your favor, which is the case there.
Yep.
And then, they got told to pause the mandates, but the companies are following through with it anyway. So, it's we're fighting back to some degree. At least there's a little bit of resistance to this thing. Okay, let's see. What's going on over here in chat? Let me take a look here, guys. We're almost at the 2-hour mark. We're gonna wrap it up here shortly. I don't think we had any other stories on the docket, did we?
We had the Thomas Jefferson story. But,
we can talk about that. This is pretty bad. Because it's only bad because Trump predicted this. And if Trump is making accurate predictions that are coming true within like 2 years, something's wrong. Because Trump is not the guy that should be making predictions. He's good at making money. He's good at running businesses. He's good at being a showman. He should not be good at making predictions. And the case, the Thomas Jefferson statue being removed from City Hall shows is that he's accurate in his predictions. That's a bad sign, folks. Thomas Jefferson statue removed from City Hall after 187 years. This is City Hall in New York. So we joked, we kind of had a tolerance for taking down the Confederate people, whatever, the slave owners, the one in Charlottesville. I forgot who that was at this point. Don't even really care anymore.
I think that was
Robert E. Lee. Was it
Robert E. Lee?
Yeah.
General Robert E. Lee for the Confederate Army.
So I can see at least a weak argument for taking those particular statues down. But Thomas Jefferson, people, we're there. We're taking statues down of Thomas Jefferson now. They're going to take it away from City Hall and go put it in a museum somewhere. So it's not exactly, being destroyed, as in the statues in Portland, for example. But it's being taken away from City Hall. And really what that signifies is that, we're not interested in the values that Thomas Jefferson had for us or instilled in this country with his actions. And we're not interested in his legacy. And this is really bad. And I'm going to link this to something that you're not going to see it really linked to anywhere else. And now we could see this as, it's a racism story, right? It's a black versus white story because racism, that's the argument ultimately, is that Thomas Jefferson had 800 slaves. He's a racist. That's how most people are taking this. But in reality, what we have here, because on the weekly narrative, on the All-Centrist, we always zoom out, look at the bigger picture. As objective observers, we have to study what's happening as if we're historians living it in real time. This is the death of competence. This is the death of IQ, intelligence, because why? Here's why. People are incapable of looking at past events, past people, past personalities, past policies, past governments, history in general. They're incapable of looking at history through the lens of the ethics of those times. These people are incapable of looking at any period of time in history or any other culture, any other society, any other countries through anything but their own 21st century modern ethical lens. They don't have the mental plasticity to imagine a different perspective on something, and therefore they are forced to react the way that they would if they were sent back in a time machine after being told that racism is bad and that slavery is bad. If they were sent back in a time machine, they would say, oh, you got slaves, you're bad, because their brains are not capable of understanding that people had different ethics back in the 18th century. Jefferson had 600 slaves. Yes, so did a lot of people. Black people had slaves.
Yeah.
Indian people had slaves. The Mexicans had slaves. Everybody had slaves, people. Everyone.
Yeah, mostly. And I'd like to add that it was mostly wealthy people that owned slaves. It wasn't like the poor populations of the colonies at that point had slaves, because slaves were actually very, very expensive back then. It was not like it was a standard that every single plantation or every single household had to have slaves.
As if every white guy had a slave.
Yeah, no, it was actually the wealthy and the landowners who were the ones that owned the most slaves. So that was just the norm back then. Doesn't make it right, but that's just how it was.
Yeah, and whether it's because their education was bad, I don't think that's it. I think they know history. They're choosing to look at it through this particular lens of modern 21st century ethics. And that is, yes, a lot of them are choosing to be ignorant of the history and just go along with that because that's what's trendy these days. But I think a lot of times it is an intellectual incapability of them to partake in a different perspective on events. That is a really bad sign. I mean, that's low intelligence. That's a lack of empathy. It's a lack of imagination, a lack of openness. There's all kinds of personality traits and intellectual explanations we can get into for why that is. But in general, just the quickest and easiest way to explain it is that they're stupid. Their brains aren't powerful enough. They don't have enough horsepower up there to think of the fact that, well, okay, this happened 300 years ago. Maybe times were different back then. Culture was different. This was acceptable in society. They can't comprehend that at all. So, of course, everything is looked at in the lens of 21st century modernity, and that's why these statues of Thomas Jefferson are now being ripped down.
Yeah, well, I mean, like you said, he was a racist that owned slaves, even though he really wasn't. And he wrote one of our founding documents. But let's not care about that. Let's not care about the fact that he gave us our Bill of Rights and wrote that down for us. Let's just focus on the fact that he owned slaves and completely cancel him out of our history books because of that, instead of focusing on the amazing value that he brought into our country. And I mean, he was our third president of the United States, for crying out loud. That's not something that we need to ignore because of, one injustice that he might have done in 300 years ago. Come on now.
Yeah, interesting contrasting. We want to go back 300 years to look at the history of individual in this particular case, but then we don't want to look back 3 months at the criminal record of people who drive cars through crowds or come to riots with unauthorized handguns, illegal firearms, and with long criminal records, things like that. So we're very selective in what the pasts that we look at. I can't figure out the criteria. Really, it's very confusing. If it's over 100 years, we care. If it's within 5 months, we don't. It's really, really confusing. I can't follow along. But the point is, there is no real standard. It's just whatever is politically expeditious for you at that particular moment in time.
Well, yeah, like I said, let's just ignore all the beautiful things that he brought to this country. Same thing with George Washington and Benjamin Franklin and all of our founding fathers that found this great nation. They just want to ignore all the positive things and the fact that they founded this great nation and fought a war with a completely with a enemy that was better armed, better prepared, had more people, and won, and was able to start this amazing country. Let's ignore all that just because they might have been slave owners, or they might have owned people at one point in time in history, when owning people was the norm, when owning people was just a part of the culture. But we don't do that anymore. But let's focus on what we did 300-400 years ago.
So, yeah, there's a lot of different angles you could take with the story of the Thomas Jefferson statue being ripped down. You could take the anti-white racism story. They're just taking it down because they hate white people. That's a legitimate angle. You could take the angle that they're stuck in the past, and they're always going to reference racism. You can take that angle too. But my favorite angle, and I think the bigger picture angle, which is the most consequential of all, is the general death of intelligence and competence in America. The inability for people to look at history through different ethical lenses and perspectives. That's again, really, really bad for civilizations when you can't collectively do that anymore. So. Somebody in chat's mentioning national divorce. This is why people want national divorce, and we're at a fundamental disagreement point now, where people, half the country or so, they don't live in America anymore. They don't want to live in America, and the other half does. So what do you do? Monday morning dullard.
Yo.
Thank you, Holly.
Forgive me because I am an outsider, eh?
Yes.
Sorry. But I see the taking down of all of these statues of your founding fathers, one of the steps in the erasure of the creation of your country. What has this group of people been fighting against that has talked about all this time about how evil America as a concept is, how evil and wrong the concept of freedom is? It's tearing apart your Constitution. It's tearing down your founding fathers. It's erasing them from different parts of your history. It's taking away the concept of what America means.
Absolutely.
Take that away, erase that from the history books, and you don't ever have America mentioned again. It's sad, really.
Yeah, then you don't have any competition.
Leave it to the Canadian to be more patriotic than a lot of these people.
Yeah, well, it's true. If you can remove the ideological competition, well, then you don't have to worry about, having white supremacist students, white nationalist students, Nazi students in your classroom daring to tell people that, the country wasn't founded in 1619, and that, all these anti-white things that are being told are actually BS. There won't be any fighting back to that. If you can destroy the set of ideals that America was founded on, there won't be any reference point for anybody to move forward with.
And to me, it's like they say they want to get rid of the white supremacists and the neo-Nazis, but by doing all of these things, erasing American heroes and erasing American history and American historical figures like Thomas Jefferson and George Washington and Benjamin Franklin, it's just going to create more white supremacists, because all the white supremacists have been saying the last 50 years is that they want to erase white people from history. And here they are doing that. And all the white people who kind of were against the other racist white people are going to be like, you know what, you guys are right. I'm with you guys. They are erasing us. They don't want us to be around here. We need to do something about this. So to me, this is going to create more racism in our country than it is going to solve.
Well, it's not only that, but it's actually actively harming black people. All these things they're trying to do is not helping blacks at all. These college things, all the benefits they get in hiring, all the gimmies that we give them, the little help ups, the hand me downs, all that kind of stuff. It's not helping them long term. It's not fixing the root cause of the issue. It's only making it worse. So it's almost as if they actually do want to harm blacks. They actually hate blacks and minorities, but they're just masking it and yelling at us for being racist, which again, iron law of woke projection would state that is actually what is happening.
Absolutely.
To Paul and Stereo here.
I love the idea of always judging the past by our current standards. It is just as legitimate to do that forwards. What would the Victorians think about us? But more to the point, who is so arrogant that they think they won't be judged as being part of a society which killed tens of millions. It's gonna hit 100. It's gonna hit hundreds of millions. It's probably gonna hit 1 billion by the 2100s globally of aborted children. And a society which bans people for dissenting thought. Who is so arrogant and ignorant of human nature and history and how things change? That they will always be in the right and that they will not be judged for example, those two things. There are more, but you are some kind of stupid if you think you're immune to judgment yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that same subterranean IQ that prevents them from being able to look into the past also prevents them from looking forward into the future. So you're 100% correct. They're going to get worse than the slavery generation. The stuff that's going on now, I would say, the history books, at the end of the day, when we're all dead and people are reading about us in the little compressed data carbon blocks or whatever they're going to be using at that time for storing data, they're going to be looking at us and be like, damn, they were messed up. This society was really messed up, and even more so than even back in the 1700s. So, accurate, true, sir. We got 3 here from the Morning Duller. Now, hopefully, they're a little more substantive.
I like how I can put the little emojis that look like I'm saying, "Oh."
Can you do
awesome?
Can you do emojis now? I can't see them because I just have all the chat windows open. But unless you got 2 more here.
Oh, you guys don't know what anyone did 300 years ago. None of you were there.
Oh, duh.
That's our point exactly. You can't really fully understand the ethics of the time, and therefore we should not judge them by what we do not understand. Okay, Holly just dropped one, and then we'll wrap up the stream here.
I agree, and my 16-year-old and I have had these conversations about what we call presentism, and it's perpetuated through time, throughout human history. We always think that we are the ones that are living in the greatest time in history. And if you step back and take a look, we're living in a time, and there are great parts of it. But how arrogant are we thinking that we are the best humans that have ever existed or ever will exist?
Yeah. These people that never take 1 second out of their entire life to sit down and contemplate something greater than their immediate vicinity. Nothing philosophical, nothing intellectual, not the ramifications of history, not where your life is on the whole spectrum of time. None of that ever even enters their brains. And that's why we talk about how to determine if somebody's human or not, because you need to know if you're interacting with a mutant or an NPC or a leftoid or whatever it is, and these are all great ways to determine that if that is happening or not. I think I'll wrap it up here on Tulpas. Has a great comment in the YouTube that I think summarizes everything perfectly well in a way that I probably wouldn't have been able to come up with. He says, "This generation is the new Rome. All that shall remain of our remnant will be a layer of plastic and silicone in the substrate, and the truth will remain the truth." Amen to that.
Hear, hear.
So
Amen.
let us, on this Thanksgiving Day, be thankful that we still have the ability to look into the past, to look into the future, to look at things from a different perspective, to understand complex situations and not rush to judgment, be controlled by our emotions, and just the general ability for us to use our minds freely. I'm thankful for that, and I think you all should be too.
Absolutely, 100% that I was given the ability to try and look at things as objectively as I can. And of course, my female nature does get emotional about things, but still at the end of the day, I can listen to ration and reason from people that are older, smarter, know more than me, and can come to my own conclusions about them. And I'm absolutely thankful that I'm able to do that.
Absolutely. So if you guys like the stream, if you like the content, if you like this sort of philosophical line of thinking, be sure to follow, subscribe, all that good stuff, depending on what platform you're on. It could be one of various methods because we are on various platforms right now, Odyssey, YouTube, and Stereo. You can potentially be listening to this on the actual podcast, which is posted on the Alt Centrist podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Stitcher. So look for us there if you want to listen to us while you're in the gym, getting jacked, working on your car, working on your homestead, whatever it is. Guys, thank you for joining us today. We'll see you guys next week. Every Wednesday, 7 p.m. PST. You'll find us right here. We hope to see you again next week. Have a great Thanksgiving. Eat some turkey, some ham. Have a great time. And remember, just ask your friends and family if they like your owl. We'll see you guys next Wednesday.
Yep. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Lots of love from California.